Welcome to the show, Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody podcast, episode 5.
Five.
How you doing today, Joy?
I'm all right. I can't complain. I guess I'm gonna get into what I'm on. That's how we do this.
Let's do it.
So what I'm on this week is I just saw the movie Tonya. And then comma Tonya. The movie about Tonya Harding. And man, I really thoroughly enjoyed that movie because one, I was really watching figure skating like a mug during that time. With the Nancy Kerrigan thing and all that, like much respect to Margot Robbie because she really did paint Tonya Harding in a sympathetic way. And if you ever were curious about how that all went down, it's just like really gonna explain it. And it was just really good. The acting was good, and it really makes you question like the media in America and how it really can twist the story to make somebody a villain that might not necessarily be, or they might have a part in it, but you don't know, like, they're not going to show you the full story. So it's really deep, and I really enjoyed that movie. So that's what I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, we watched the movie together, and I think the one thing I kept on thinking the entire time is, how would that saga have played out in today's world of media coverage, right? You had the first time really that the Winter Olympics had something that required a 24/7 news cycle, and the tactics that the media used to really vilify Tonya to build out their coverage and to get the ratings was really interesting. So I think, you watch that movie, you'll definitely feel much different about Tonya Harding. And Margot Robbie did the movie, as I read, in the way that she did, so people understand the true story. And you did feel sympathy for Tonya. And, we just heard about a month ago, Tanya's been named to the next season of Dancing with the Stars. So really happy to see that she's going to be able to hopefully make it back to the public mainstream and hopefully get that bag off of this.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add, too, is it just makes you think about just like classism in America, too, because she was struggling. Like, they didn't want to see her as a star figure skater just because she was white, but they thought she was white trash. So it's like, well, dang, if she's white, though, and she's like having this struggle just making it in the sport. Imagine if a Hispanic girl or a black girl or somebody else is really trying to make it. So it just makes you think like how America is set up for like people to fail. It's like too many barriers you got to go through.
Yep. Rich versus poor, constant war that we're always going to have.
Yeah. So Coley, what you on?
What I've been on is Rolling Loud Music Festival. We're recording this right now, 2 hours off an airplane, coming from Miami, fresh off the Rolling Loud Fest. We only went 2 out of the 3 days. But I think it's a dope music festival to see hardcore hip hop get its time to shine for 3 days. No major incidents that I know of, to see, the best of the best come out for the culture.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, we saw all kind of stuff. The girls in bikinis, the girls in a sheer shirt with nothing underneath. That wasn't pleasant sights, but there are way more pleasant sights. And the only thing I would say is there were some lineup and like organizational issues. Like Coley, we waited like an hour and a half just trying to get our wristbands to get in. And so that made you tired once you were actually inside. And then like, I feel like the lineup was kind of weird because they had Juicy J and they had Fetty Wap as like headliners. And I mean, I know maybe 2 Juicy J songs, and one of them is that Katy Perry song. So I feel like they could have did better just with that, the structuring part of it.
I think getting a lot of rap acts together, dealing with talent and management, it's tough with any genre of music, but especially hip hop. And I think the way the stages were set up, like you said, Joe, I think it's tough because you had people who were headliners and they had, other headlining level acts in front of them. So that naturally brought a crowd. Whereas you had somebody like NERD who had, I can't even remember the act that was in front of them, but it wasn't a good lead in. I mean, there was an act before him. I think the guy's name was Ross.
Oh, yeah, Russ.
Russ. So he came before him, and then there was like an hour gap. And then by the time NERD got out there, there was a 3 hour, there was only 300 people there to see them perform. And that's way too underserved to have all 3 of them together to have that type of turnout. I think another interesting thing that happened during the show is Metro Boomin performed, and we were looking forward to seeing him. And he came out to Father Stretch My Hand, one of his best tracks that he'd done with Kanye. And I think seeing the crowd being torn on, do I sing the lyrics? Do I not sing it? I think that was an interesting dynamic to see. And it really got Joy and I to thinking about our show topic for today, just taking how Kanye has created such controversy with millennials and young people, and seeing how somebody can push somebody away from something that they liked or that they've been familiar with. So that got Joy and I thinking about, like, why aren't young people going to church anymore? We see how politics has infiltrated the church establishment. So why aren't young people going?
I heard an NPR article, story about it, and that's what got me thinking. Because just to give a little background about myself, I went to a Lutheran K through a public high school, and then I went to a Catholic Jesuit college, but I was like super Christian. I was I was like that saving yourself for marriage, like gun ho, no ho Christian. Cause basically, like, dude, I was like the president of the gospel choir. I was like in the church's gospel choir, like I was just like going ham. And then just one day it was just like, I don't want to do this no more. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I felt so guilty because I thought I was the only one who was like this. And then I had heard the story and I was like, damn, I guess it's something that's going on with my age group. So anyways, some of the stats are that 22 to 35-year-olds, only 2 in 10 under 30 believe attending church is important or worthwhile. 59% of millennials raised in church have dropped out. That's basically me. 35% of millennials have an anti-church stance, believing the church does more harm than good. And then millennials are the least likely age group of anyone to attend church by far.
So with these stats in place, what Joy and I did, we came up with the top 10 reasons we aren't going to church. And we is not Joy and myself again, we in the broadest sense. So with that, Joy, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Nothing to it but to do it. You want to start out?
Sure. So these are in no particular order, and we're gonna list these out in the description for our YouTube description for this episode, so you guys can keep along with this. So reason number 1, it feels like an exclusive club. It feels like it's a place that you have to earn your stripes in order to feel like you belong. And a lot of people really don't want to have to deal with that element. High school was tough enough for a lot of people. So having to do that for something that's optional, I'll call it, it's tough.
And I feel like, to go with the exclusive club component, it does feel like an exclusive club, but it's like your membership can very quickly also get revoked. And it could be for something that is just like, damn, like, didn't you do that? Like, you revoking, like the people revoking your membership, like, did the same stuff or maybe even worse. It's just like, I think it's an exclusive club. You have to do a lot to be accepted within it. And but they also can revoke your membership card just like that, and you got to work doubly hard to get back in.
Yeah, and it's not your actual church membership. Even that is a process to get into. I'm just talking about, the social aspect of church. You're going in there to hopefully fellowship, meet like-minded individuals, and you have the same hope for college and high school, or if you join a fraternity, and going to a church, that could be the toughest circle to crack, because it's not all put in a neat package as to why we're at church in the first place. So the nature of this kind of esoteric club isn't full and clear, and I think that creates a lot of confusion and a lot of cliques that make it hard to navigate, and a lot of people don't even want to go down that path.
Yeah, I think another component with this exclusive component is like, you got some churches like, okay, I'm not throwing no shade at Apostolic, so simmer down, but Apostolic it's a brand new church that's in our neighborhood. It's brand new, but I don't necessarily always feel like I'm free to just walk in. I just feel like you built this for yourself. I don't know if it was built like for the outside community, and in order to be a part, I'm gonna have to go through the membership class and go through all this stuff to kind of get involved. So it can be a little bit time consuming, and I just don't know if millennials got the time like that at the same time to be a part of the club when they could be a part of something else or put their time into something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, reason number one being that it's an exclusive club. I think reason number two, I think is not as connected, but I think when we look at is a lot of these churches, you have very charismatic and dynamic leaders who are very persuasive presenters of the scripture and or their message for that week, but we don't necessarily have good leaders in the church. With that, what I'm really getting into is the fact that we don't have people who are there for the true salvation of souls or for truly helping out. You have people that have put in their time and they're good at either fundraising or galvanizing the ministry or the congregation to act according to the church's agenda. But I feel like you don't have the leaders who are providing the spiritual food that, people like us are looking for right now.
Well, I just go with I think that you could have charismatic and good leaders in churches, but I just think it's hard to find that church that has like it's always going to be a church that's going to have something wrong with it, but it's hard to find that one that like has a great leader that people aren't, because a lot of times people are idolizing the pastor and then it really doesn't even deal with like Jesus or God anymore in the first place. So I think that's a component. It's just like, dude, they're like, you're just a person just like me. Like, I kind of get annoyed. Like when you walk in, why are we standing? Like you're a person, you're a person just like me. Like, let's just keep it like trill, dude. Like just like we're trying to get the message. We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to help the community. And there's people out here who are doing that and they don't need so much like praise and adoration and things like of that nature. So I just think sometimes it's not even charismatic. I just think the egos are like a little too inflated. And that's because people are worshiping the man and not the message.
I think that's off-putting if you're new to a membership or a congregation because you don't even know this man or woman leading this congregation or leading this flock. And you're expected to kind of just fall in line because that person is the head of this church body, right? And I think how they get there, like no one really knows how you become the head pastor. And I think we have to separate here. This is not all churches. It's easy to point at the big churches and to say this is what's happening. But a lot of the smaller churches, you see these churches, either doing well or not doing well because you might have someone who has a noble mission in mind, but they're not charismatic enough to carry it out or get them to believe and get you to believe and then follow them. So, I think leadership at the head of the church is at the base of what young people are looking for to be better, right? You're really looking for that spiritual mentor or really a mentor when really you're getting someone who's, really good at selling something. And I think that's kind of been off-putting to a generation and that people are kind of over.
Yeah. And going just with the leaders, I think what could make a good leader too is it's like, if you're a millennial, you're looking for a leader that can relate to you. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to rib nobody. I'm just trying to say, like, if I'm a millennial and I had sex before marriage, oh my gosh. And then on top of it, I watched porn. Oh no. And then on top of it, I overate. And then on top of that, maybe I stole a couple pens from my job or something. And then you got like this pastor up there who's literally is like presenting themselves as like so holy. They say they're self for marriage. They like, how can I relate to you? Like, honestly, that's what's missing. Like a relatable leader is like a leader. I would more respect a church leader that was like, okay, like I have a couple gay friends because so do I, it's like, how can I relate to you? I can't. I guess I'll move into the next point, which is no return on investment. What are you doing for the community?
Yeah, so I think just in general, there's a lack of trust on how resources are being used, right? We go to these churches, we see these big halls, or we don't. We see these, I don't want to say decadent buildings, but we see these very nice facilities, and what we don't see is like a transparent accounting of what's happening with the church funds. We go there, whether you tithe or not, or whether you give offering, whether it's sporadic or not. I think the fact that you don't see where that money is going and how it's benefiting your community or how it can potentially help you, like it's not there at all. I love the show Shark Tank, and I love just that aspect of it. I know it gets a lot of criticism for picking on desperate people. But my thing is, you have some churches with a lot of money and churches with not a lot of money. And my thing is, on one end of that spectrum, the big churches, there's no transparency on what's going on, but big undertakings are happening. You have smaller churches and it's like, yo, you got a decent chunk of money. How are you struggling? What did you do with it? And I feel like that needs to be there, right? There shouldn't be just here's the budget that each department gets. It should be like, yo, this is what we want to do. I need to sing for my money. And then that's how the church allocates fund. Like there's hard costs, but then there's other outreach and ministries that should have an opportunity to present to the congregation, like, this is what I want to do and I need this much money. I feel also churches should be investing more in the community. It should almost be like the Shark Tank, where if I have a small business idea, like you, the church, should be my bank because you have the money to fund it. And that can also make the church bigger and richer by literally investing in the people in the community. And I feel like there's just an overall mistrust with how tithes and offering are used to fund the church.
Well, I enjoy that point a lot, but I'm just going to want to add just a different perspective for the tithe and offering. I just think with the tithe and offering, there's a lot of miscommunication and misdirection regarding the tithe and offering, because in my opinion, the way I was taught was that your tithe is like God gave you you got 100%. You can give 10% back to God and the 90% you could live off of. But the way the church is kind of presented is the only option for that 10% is for it to go back into the church, which I feel is kind of like, I don't want to say misleading, but kind of like unfair for you to say, like, I can only give 10% back to church. Like, why can't I pick a charity and give 10% of my income to that? Why can't I pick like a nonprofit that's really doing something in the community and give 10% to that? Like, isn't that still kind of like giving back to God in a way? I'm still giving, but the truth of the matter is your tithe is going to keeping them lights on. Your tithe is going to that damn, I don't mean it, well, whatever. It's going to like your pastor's salary. So they're not gonna be like, yeah, just give your 10% to whatever you like. Like, nah, they want you to give it back to them. And that, to me, that's a part that makes people like lose trust. It's like, if people are just like, hey, you can give it to us, or you can give it to this, or whatever you want, just as long as you're giving, I feel like that would make people a little bit more like open to giving their money, because then you really do feel like an investor. And then at the same time, like with the point, there's no return on your investment. There's also no return on the investment of your damn time. Because some of these damn churches be going too long. Like, dude, cut that service. Like, that's too, like, y'all got to reformulate. I don't want to be in church for 4 hours. I want to be in church for 2. Like, I got a 3-year-old and I'm about to have another baby. Like, y'all got to wrap it up. Like, you don't get a return on just your time, because it's almost one of those, like, you go visit a church and then you might not like it, and then you're just like, dang, I could have went to Costco.
I think that's the problem with, kind of younger people or this generation as a whole. Like there's so many things that we have to get after as a society. You only have a finite amount of time and a finite amount of money. And in order to make anything grow or to sustain yourself, you have to invest here. Quite simply, the way it's set up now, like 10% of your income goes into your 401k, whether it's Roth or whether it's, your Roth or your traditional 401k, like 10% of your income is almost going there. So you have enough for yourself to live off in your old age, because the way America is working now, there's the value once you get older on your skill and what you bring to the workforce isn't there anymore. So you pretty much need that 10% for yourself so you can live off of, especially if you don't have a pension set up for you based on what your job is. Because I know I don't and what I do. So what I have once I get older, once I retire, is what I've put aside for myself. There's nobody else providing for me or my family after that time has come. So it's interesting to see, like the church isn't really, and, again, you have to go consistently and really be part of that. But the church isn't set up, and maybe it's not the church's role, but it's not set up to be a place that can help fund you and or the community. So the return that people see on what they're doing isn't quite there.
Yeah, it's just like how you said, like if you struggling with your mortgage, like maybe you could go to the church and they might help you but it's not like a guarantee. And then on top of it, they're gonna be looking at, well, you only come 2 Sundays every other month, so we really can't, help you out.
Or even if it's a micro loan, like that's the whole notion that
Yeah.
people forget that, churches could play a role in. And I'm not saying that all young people are looking for the church to do that, but I think, again, the financial transparency isn't there. And I think if it was, I think it would be a lot more attractive. People like the notion of seeing where their money is going, how it's being used. People want to understand, the cost of an item and where it's all going. And when you don't have that for any product or service, you're losing. Your business, your brand is losing.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's just the last point I'm gonna make about the tithe is just keep in mind. I just feel like they should lessen the role that it has to be money. Like if you don't have the money, you can give your time. It's just about 10% giving back in some way, giving back to help. Like I feel like that's what's getting lost. Like it's about giving back. It's about helping others, whether it's your time or your money. But right now it's so hard of a focus. Like just give your money, and that's not what it should be about anymore. That's my opinion. But yeah, speaking of the time component, the next point, and this is point number 4, is just too much competition from other things on Sunday. So for millennials, it's just too much competing for their time for them to go to church on Sunday. That's the point.
Yeah, you think about everything you have going on. Most people, especially professionals, the way this world is set up now, you're supposed to grind right out of college. You're supposed to have that 10, 11-hour work day. You're supposed to be happy to do that because you're setting yourself up for the future. But that comes at a cost. A 50-hour work week, the last thing you want to do is obligate yourself to something that you don't want to do where you don't see the return. If you think about all the dating apps you have now, you only can fit in so many dates in a week, and a Sunday brunch is an opportune time. You have to think about time with your guys or with your girls. You got to think about your football season. That right there cuts out, especially if you have a good team, 17 to 20 Sundays out the year. If you're a Bears fan, unfortunately, that probably cuts out about 4 or 5 weekends out the year, them bum asses. But
well, Packers, not the case.
Yeah. You just have other things, other stimuli that are out there to get people over. Like people can binge watch Netflix shows or get caught up on all the things on their DVR that they missed because of their already busy work week. There's just too many other stimuli. We think about this podcast. There's a ton of other options, and we appreciate all our listeners that we get. And I think we do things to hopefully cater to you. We come up with topics that matter to you. Hopefully we come up with, points that matter to you. And that's how we want to attract you, the listener. The church has an obligation to do the same, especially to that younger millennial, as we'll call it, millennial member, or that millennial member you want to get. And without that, you're going to continue to lose.
Yeah, well, it's just other things too, competing with your time. Because like I said, I was super religious, but I was straggling the fence. I would be going out, partying or whatever. And then I would be that random person that's trying to make it to 11 a.m. service when I just went to sleep at 5. And then it's you're not fully there. But you feel guilty almost okay, I got to do that. And I just, it's not convenient times for people, for a young adult. Maybe you could have a later service or have more services during the week, or it's just the traditional system. We have to change it. You have to change, cause it's just too much competing with your time. Just think about when you go in the bathroom and you're looking at Instagram and all of a sudden you look up and an hour has passed. That's what you're dealing with now. So it's not somebody's going to be oh man, oh my gosh, let me get off my Instagram. I got to get on my church clothes. People aren't doing that.
Yeah, people are looking for experiences now. If you think about it, we literally got back from a music festival 2 hours ago at the time of this recording. That means all day Sunday. We didn't actually go inside the fest Sunday. It means, that's what people do. When we go to Austin City Limits, we saw the Gorillas last year. That was a Sunday. You go to Lollapalooza, you're losing. So right off the bat, half the weekends out of the year, especially on Sundays, most millennials have things already planned, whether it's dates, whether it's watching parties. People have things planned. And as you get older and you become a young family, you have errands to run or quality time you want to spend. It's just too many things that, as a church institution, you're competing against to attract younger people, your future, to want to come and want to kick it there.
Yeah, and on top of it, it's like, okay, dear church, like, stop making people feel guilty at the same time if they don't make it, because that doesn't work. Like, that just makes people turned off and they don't want to come. If you went out to the club and you had a good time and now you're gonna make me feel guilty because I didn't make it to church, it's like, well, you might have had a better time at the club than you would have had at church that day. And it's just like that random, like, sister Carmen or sister Gloria that comes up to you and was like, we missed you last Sunday. Like, dude, stop. Why are you keeping track of what I'm doing? Like, that just makes me not want to come. It's just too much going on. Like, I feel like the priorities aren't there in some ways, like, or they need to be shifted around.
Absolutely. And I think, Joy, what the point you were just making there is a good segue into reason number 5. Church and religion are not separated. And I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time dissecting this one. So when I think about the church, I think about, I always think about church starts with the C and community starts with C. For me, the church is a building where the community is supposed to go together come together with the common goal of understanding Jesus and his works and his acts. I'm sorry, the Christian church. I can't speak for any other religion right now, but I figure the Christian church, what I know. But to me, that's the place where the church and community is supposed to come together to understand how you can take the Bible and the works of the people in the Bible, especially Jesus, and understand how you can be a better person as you live through your life. I feel right now, what's happening with religion, a lot of kids feel that there's no sense of community in the church. There's no sense of mentorship. There's no sense of, I'm going to help you get better direction. I feel like it's a place where people are using religion and tenets from the beliefs that you pull from the Bible to pass judgment on and not build the community, but feel actually like you're divided, that you have to earn your way into this exclusive club. And I feel like that's become a really problematic because you don't feel a sense of community based around the teachings of the religion. It feels like it's a place where religion is used to beat you down and not to build you back up.
I agree. And then like, the church and religion are not separated. I just think, like, it's not enough of just like, let's go back to the Bible. Like, let's just go back to the Bible. If that's what we believe in, like, let's try not to add too much or like take stuff too far out of context. Because I just feel like a lot of people don't feel accepted. In some groups, they literally know, like, you are not welcome here. And then there's other groups of people who are, they know that they're living a certain lifestyle, but they trying to hide it. And then it's like the standards aren't equalized for, like, between church and religion. Like, for instance, I'll give the example I have from my life. When me and Coley first dated, like, we had sex before we were married. Oh my God. And then on top of it,
putting my business out there in the street.
We lived in sin. We lived together.
We putting my business out there in the streets.
Oh my God. The Lord should have struck us down with lightning. But basically, I mean, just the fact that was my thought process. It's like, where is it in the Bible that I want a specific, like, scripture, like, how you can say the scripture, like, love others as you love yourself. Like, that is very specific. There's not one that's like, do not live with someone you are not married to. Like, there's nothing in there like that. There's nothing in there that's as direct as, like, homosexuals are sinners. There's nothing like that direct. I mean, that's what makes it, like, kind of imbalanced. And when you start seeing that, that's what makes you kind of, like, fall off or just live a double life. Because because if you look at a lot of church people, I'm not trying to rib, but a lot of some church people who are young, they're, like, super overweight. And I thought gluttony was a sin, but it's like, okay, you can get away with going to Ponderosa after every service and going ham, but for some reason you can't listen to Juicy J. Bands will make her dance, I mean, come on, like, it got to balance out just a little bit more. Like, you can't put more weight on one sin over another. And I feel like with the religion and with church, that's what's happening. It's like some things have more weight or are worse to do than others. And in my belief, I'm not certain that God really sees us like that because we all messed up. So that's what's going to turn people away. It's like no separation. It's like, let's get back to the meat of it. Like, let's get back to the roots.
And I think a lot of this other stuff is added in is because of reason number 6, right? We have flawed people running the church and the church body while they're kind of hiding and blocking their own wrongdoings or their own past transgressions or their own past sins.
Yeah, I mean, that just is straight up disappointing. Like, dang, like, because we were going to Willow Creek when we would go, which is about like once a month or so, whatever. And we were going, and then like the head pastor had his sexual harassment thing and was messing with women. And he like, it's like, dude, like nobody. And then you start thinking like nobody knew about this. Like y'all been covering this up all this time and letting this man like keep getting promoted and keep moving up and lead all these people. And then people just start losing faith when they really should be losing faith in the people because they flawed. Like everybody says the like church is run by broken people. Like that's what makes, like that's who's in the church, people who are broken. But it feels like people want to be like, well, I know God now. Since Jesus has come into my life, I don't live that past life. But it's like, well, it would kind of help me relate to you. Like if you would get off your pedestal and just remember like where you came from. So then we all could just move forward. Or if you're struggling with something, like, let us know, because we all struggling with something. Don't let it get to this big scandal.
Yeah, I think, the scandal with Bill Hybels at Willow Creek, I think that's like the ultimate, want to say kind of hypocrisy, right? You have this man that's been leading this congregation and this community for a number of years. And I think what you see with the Me Too movement, and you see all these things of sexual misconduct coming out, or sexual harassment coming out, and you have somebody that's the head of a mega church, and that's what Willow Creek is, a mega church. You have that coming out, and you have the elders that surrounding them. But even when you get to a lot of these smaller churches, you see a lot of people who are running ministries or heading up the choir, or people who are leading a particular, coat drive or whatever, or they're the people that's, ministering to you, and you never hear about the 3 kids that they've had with 3 different dudes. All you're hearing about is them telling you what you should be doing based off of these tenets or principles that people have derived from the Bible, where it's not said there directly. And I think a lot of people are turned off by that because you have a lot of people who aren't the divine example, and they're the one telling you what to do. It's like me leading a diet workshop class. Like no one's going to want to hear from a 300-pound dude like, yo, this is what you got to do to build muscle and lose weight. Or you're not going to listen to a baby telling you how to drive. You're not going to listen to somebody who has several DUIs teaching you how to drive. Like you have to find somebody with expertise, or somebody, if you're going to be in that role, you have to find a way to use your real story as your testimony to get you while you're here. Not, you're in the church because you hit rock bottom and now this is your way of getting back in. Like nobody wants to hear that stuff, because there's no consistency that you're going to get out of you. There's no integrity. And that's really, it comes down to honesty that you're getting out of it. There's people who are very transparent with what they've done wrong, and using that as a way to be their testimony to help push people. And I think not enough people do that, especially people in the smaller roles within the church. And I think a lot of those people represent the church that have turned people off. And a lot of times, parents, that's what you're representing to your kids. People know, your kids know that, yo, you weren't married to my parent when you had me, or you've been divorced, or you've been married multiple times. So like people know, like, you're not perfect. So you don't create yourself as a relatable character when you act like you're above what you've done. And it's like, do as I say, not as I do. But now you're at the point where I can't even do what you're saying, because what you're saying, like, you've already done, So it works back. You have people just with too many of their own transgressions, and they're not using those as teachable moments. They're trying to separate from those that attract you or to try to guide you. And it's just bullshit.
Well, yeah, with a lot of the parents, I mean, if you think about millennials, because I mean, I grew up in church. And if you thinking about like your parents or the people you saw in church, it's like, okay, y'all's hardcore in the church, but then y'all's life is kind of like a mess right now. And then it's like you thinking to yourself like, okay, I'm supposed to believe in this. But I'm not seeing the faith acted out, kind of. Or it's just like you start questioning it, like, wait, hold up. Like, you just, I don't know, it's just an interesting component. I just feel like the element of grace, just extending grace to people, like, people are messed up. Like, they already like beating themselves up enough. They don't need it from you. Like, the church is supposed to be like a haven for people to feel better. Not like go in like, okay, I felt better today, but I got to do these 3 things and then I'm really going to feel better. I got to fast. I got to pray. I mean, it's just a lot. And people just really just want grace. They want to be known they're forgiven. They want to like start over and they want like direction so they don't repeat the same pattern that they're constantly in. So it's just, I just think that the element of grace and just like giving people another chance, we all mess up, just give them another chance.
Absolutely. And I think I'll get to a more practical thing. You have people who aren't the best bookkeepers. You have people that aren't the best at running a business, actually running in your church, which is, while it's a nonprofit, it's still a business. It's still a brand that you're running. So when there's flawed people in terms of delivering the message and evangelizing to others, but you also have people that have poorly managed churches, which have turned people off. I think that goes back to the lack of return on the investment or poor mismanagement or whatever. You have that's a part of this as well. Like, you have all sorts of things that are wrong with the way these businesses are run. And I think it's really turned off a generation in terms of coming to these things, especially the more educated this generation is, the more college graduates you have, the more you see people running successful businesses, more entrepreneurs than ever, more young people in executive and leadership positions in the professional world. When they don't see that same thing translating into the place where they're supposed to get spiritual guidance, it's hard for them to want to latch on.
Yeah, it's just like mad churches like have like a boatload of debt, like a lot of debt. And with the internet now, I feel like for a while, a lot of churches could kind of cover up a lot of the hot mess that's behind the scenes, but it's harder now to cover it up. And with everything that comes out and everything that happens, it's just like people start losing faith. But I think the main thing too, you got to remember is you can't have faith in like a building or a person, like people. Like, your faith has to be in something bigger than yourself. But that's the thing that nobody's teaching them. It's just like, okay. The next point is the church is becoming a weapon that is divisive because of politics.
Absolutely. Point 7 here, people. Let's say that again. Becoming a weapon that is divisive because of politics. And I think that's where we started talking about, Kanye West and how, he's not necessarily making any biblical or Christian references, but the fact that Trump has used, and he's going on the record as saying that if I ever run for office, I'm going to run as a Republican because I can, the people that get behind that party aren't that smart, and I can use religion and values as a way of getting ahead. And I'm not, pulling from his direct quote, but he's all but said that. But we're seeing how very personal things that have affected a lot of lives are being rolled under the banner of religion, which are now being put into the gun that is politics. And I think it's really turned off a lot of people because you're not getting the spiritual food that you need from the church or from the church leaders or the guidance to help people like live through these real things. They're just used as weapons to help galvanize a group of people for the sake of getting votes.
Yeah, I always think of the example with the politics, which to me, the politics has become, and church has become larger than it was. Maybe it was like this when I was a kid, but I feel like it's a bigger issue now, and it's just super annoying. And then it's just like, man, you believe in Jesus? I definitely don't want to believe in Jesus. Like, hell no. But I always think about it was a story about these football teams. One was a Christian team. They were both like Christian teams, and the cheerleaders before each game, when the football, how they run through the paper, the cheerleaders started putting scriptures on the papers, like, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. And then they would put like, we're more than conquerors through Christ. And then like the football players would like run through. But it was kind of like people started feeling some type of way because it was like, are you saying that basically these scriptures only apply to your team and the other team is kind of out here bogus without God because y'all got scriptures. And that's how I kind of feel like with the politics is kind of a similar thing. Like one side is using the Bible and that's how they think they're going to win. And then the other side is just, and then you're looking at it from the outside. So are you saying like, I don't win because I don't believe the same thing? Like there's nowhere in the Bible that says you shall not have abortion. Like, where is that? There's nowhere in the Bible like you shall carry a gun. Like, dude, stop using the Bible for that stuff. Like, stop using religion. Like, if you believe in a certain religion, that's like separate than your political beliefs. And then it's like super divisive. Like, I remember my mom went to a church and she like really liked the church. And then like out of nowhere, like this lady was like, come to this meeting. And it was like a pro choice meeting. They had like the blood baby signs and all that. And my mom was just like, dang, like, oh, y'all doing this. So then it turned her off from a church that she kind of enjoyed. And it's just like, it's stuff like that where it's just like, y'all gotta keep that out of there. Because if you look at Jesus was with everybody. Like, dude was with everybody. Like, and that's not what y'all doing.
Yeah. I think what's missing with all of the churches, it's pretty simple. Love God, love others, right? And that's from the article that we were reading on 12 reasons millennials are over church, because there's not enough within church that just says love God, love others. Like in politics, you're able to prey on people who are already vulnerable as they've joined the church because of things they've done. They're looking for validation. They're looking for cleansing. And now you have people who have joined these churches, and these churches these political parties understand the influence that pastors and churches can have on an electorate. So what they're doing is they're tapping into that to help drive people one way or the other. I have family members that I know, I don't know if they voted for Trump, but I know I have Black family members that voted for George W. both times based on the abortion issue alone, while those same people have had abortions themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy to me to see how, you'll do that. Or definitely the way homosexuality, gay, straight, bi, trans, there's all of that stuff is being used as a means to galvanize votes without understanding the bigger ramifications of, like, this is affecting real people. This is not just something that you use to get people in the office. So I think it's interesting the way that's used in some ways, but not used. Like, I always look back at, the George W. Bush administration and the fact that, Dick Cheney, his daughter was openly gay, had been for years, not a secret at all, but that never came up once. So if you ever go back on that, gay marriage was kind of sort of brought up, but not really, and they left it more to be a statement, and they left it there. So that side of politics wouldn't get involved and somehow or another slow down Dick Cheney or divert from the party line, so they wouldn't lose votes for that reason alone. But then you also look at, gay marriage as, Obama, his first term, he openly said, like, I side with the Bible defining marriage as between a man and woman. And by his second term, it wasn't, he didn't hold that same belief. So while his intentions are noble, the Bible was, and religion and church was openly used to justify a political stance, or not justify a political stance, or avoid a political stance that would help one of the big political parties one way or another. And I think, again, the lack of transparency that people want to see with how businesses are run, it's not happening with church and politics. And I think it's really turned people off, unfortunately, the political cycle and how it's used right now.
Yeah, because with the money, you don't, like, when you go to church around the election season, all of a sudden these politics showing up at the altar, having words to say, you don't know what they're kicking back to the church. You don't know, or what the church is kicking back to them. And it's like, okay, well, what's really going on? And then I remember with Bush, I feel like Bush was really a strong, like, well, if you vote this way, you're not a good Christian. And it's just like, wait, hold up. Like, how did that become like your political value or your right to vote connect to you being a good Christian, or it's just like connected to like heaven and hell, or like where you're going, like that's taking it to an extreme. And I think sometimes church, outside of playing off of people's guilt, they also play off of people's fear. And like people who just are making too many decisions based off of fear. And churches are like really, really like playing off of that. Cause I know that's why I was so hardcore religious, because deep down I was afraid of like a lot. And that's what kept me going. And then once I was just like, wait, I don't care what these people say. I'm not afraid of what people think. Then you start seeing a little bit more clear. But they kind of play off of your weaknesses. Not all churches, but sometimes you got to go in there with a level head. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely. So I think we can do a whole show about this one in and of itself. I'll leave you guys one last nugget. It's interesting in politics. Most people, Joy and I both interned in Congress, like U.S. Congress. And while we were there, Ted Kennedy was still alive. And one interesting fact they always told us, they said Ted Kennedy's best friend outside of politics, Ted Kennedy, Democrat, part of the Kennedy family, his best friend was Orrin Hatch, a complete opposite right-winger, versus Ted Kennedy, a Massachusetts liberal. So it's funny when you take out politics and religion, people come together. Once you add that in, it's very divisive. And I think people are, these political parties are using this as a marketing tool to get voters, and I think it's sad. So that said, we'll probably dive into that one more and more, probably come next election cycle. So stay tuned for that one. Man. Reason number 8. And I think this one we've kind of touched on throughout the show, so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time, but I think there's unrealistic expectations on millennial people, right? The church expects your personal behavior to be the barometer of your worth versus your acts and just being a good person. Again, you have a lot of people who expect you to act to these tenets that, as Joy said earlier, that aren't explicitly laid out in the Bible. But then if you don't live to that, like, you're not worthy of being in this exclusive club. And I think millennials are calling bullshit on that and like, yo, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, let's love God and let's love each other. But once that's not there, people are just over it.
Yeah, it's just becoming too hard to keep up with these standards. It's just too hard. And even when I was there, I didn't have the internet when I was uber religious. I mean, maybe we had Black Planet or something, but it's not how it is now. Like, I see it being really hard to like live up to these like standards that are just like not unrealistic. Like, I remember a pastor was like, dude, you can't listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like, you can't listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like, your kids shouldn't be listening to Sesame Street. Like, you can't go to the movies. Like, I didn't even see the damn Harry Potter series. I didn't see none of the Harry Potter movies or read the books. My mom did, though. I put you on blast, yeah. But anyways, when we was in church, they was like, you can't watch Harry Potter. And that was like a huge cultural thing that you just be like missing out because you're like, oh, it's demonic, or oh, it's this or that. And it's just like, people after a while, they get tired of missing out on dang near everything. Like, the balance, like if church wants you to give up so much, they need to give you more in return. So then you feel like you're not missing out. But I feel like young people always have the sense like they're kind of missing out, even though they're trying to do the right thing. And I don't know how you could balance that out, but just having a gospel fest every Friday, that ain't gonna hit it. Like, that ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, I think there's two things to kind of unpack within reason number 8 here. One, I think a lot of young people are looking, and I've said this word a lot, they're looking for mentorship, they're looking for guidance. They don't need to be preached at what you can and cannot do. And big reason for that is the culture has always been blamed on stuff going wrong, on what's wrong with society, right? Whether it was, rock and roll at one point was the devil's music. Then you evolved, rap was all about the devil. Then you get to Harry Potter was all about the devil. Now, all these SoundCloud rappers that are, Tekashi and Lil Pump, all these guys are what's wrong with society. Like,
Tekashi do look weird, though.
He do look weird.
Look like a clown.
But now everybody has dyed hair now. So that, you know what I'm saying? Right. So the point is, it's always going to evolve. Like, the culture is always going to evolve. What people need is, how do I live in a world where I like, let's say you like Takashi. How do I still live and not feel like I'm a bad person? Because in
Yeah,
reality,
that's true.
it could be both. Because at the end of the day, it's entertainment and it's a perspective on, what's going on in the world that nobody should feel guilty about enjoying. And I feel like the church's role is to help you reconcile those two things. And especially when it's not a moral crime or doesn't go against what's in the Bible. So I think that's what's missing right now with the expectations that churches have. They really want you to live this strict life that no one has ever lived, including the person preaching right now. And because things are so damn preachy, nobody wants to even get engaged or get involved.
Yeah, sums it up.
Reason number 9, there's a false sense of community, right? We said this a couple different ways, whether it's an exclusive club and a false sense of community. I think really what people are looking for are ways to actually build their community, both their physical surroundings in their neighborhood, as well as their physical characters. And churches market themselves as being able to do that. And then once you get in and start peeling back the layers, you realize there's sermons and mission statements and these ministries that don't really help you, or that are, going over to Africa, but you never see what's going on. But, the pastors are flying over there, even if it's a small church, or somehow or another on the private jet with the big church. You're not really seeing this community coming to life in your world.
With the false sense of community, just like, I know that a lot of churches go to like Mexico, Africa, but then a lot of people say too, like they'll build a school, but they'll like abandon the school, but you won't hear about it. And it's like, well, I'm a teacher in Inglewood, like build my school up. Like, let's start where your church is actually located. Let's build up. Because if you look at churches, basically a church is like a black person's business. Like, black people have a certain amount of businesses. It's the beauty salon, the barbershop, the daycare, maybe a nail shop, but that's not really happening. And then it's a church, but everybody wants to put the church above those businesses. But those are the main businesses you see in a black community. And it's like, what is the church doing to build up that community? What are you doing to give back, not just to the members of your church, but the whole area surrounding the church? I think that's like a missing link. I feel like if more churches were improving their neighborhoods and just improving the surrounding area without like being like witnessing to people, just like, hey, like, let your witness be your works. Like, make the community better, pick up the litter, give books to the kids. Like, what's happening? Like, that's my main like kind of gripe.
Yeah, I said this earlier. I really feel that the church should come together and almost be like the community bank, right? That's the place where if the church has the resources, it's easy to look at Apostolic because it's in our neighborhood in Bronzeville. We see the multi-million-dollar new building they're putting up, and what they're doing right there. My thing is, like, what's the capital investment you're making on the rest of that block, right? You have a liquor store across the street. You have a kind of I'll call it a transient motel across the street. Like, what are you doing to make the rest of that area better? And there's things you could definitely do. In the years that it took you to raise however many $1 million to do that, there's no reason in the world you can't be putting up practical things that you either own as a church or you either invest in, with an entrepreneur to help build that out. We all know Bronzeville, people want to see that renaissance going, but without that investment, without the people there's no way that it's going to happen. So for me, I feel like this community that's the church is not invested enough into that. I also think a lot of, I think it's sad that no matter what city you go to now, you see a lot of drug use. And I hate to say the word poor people, but like, that's what it is. People less fortunate, whether it's through drug addiction, whether it's through failed ventures, whether it's through just bad luck, whatever it is. I think we don't see churches investing enough in the poor people in our area. I think that's something that millennials definitely want to see within this community. Like, if that's a tangible thing that people, we're not going to all 500 of us or all 20 of us are not going to sit here Sunday. We're all going to go out. We're all going to rent a bus, get everybody bathed and cleaned for the week. We're going to get hot meals in people's stomach. And that's what we're going to do at church today. It's not just about hearing that sermon, but I think if churches were set up to be things like that, I think you would see membership and engagement go up.
Yeah. And I mean, well, you could use kind of like Chance the Rapper as an example, because he at least he is bringing up like Jesus and Christianity in his music, but he curses at the same time in his music, and that would be like, oh my God, you can't do that. I mean, but dude does a lot. Like, look at what he does. Like, he does, like, his foundation is social works. Like, dude is really like doing stuff, and I just feel like more churches, like, y'all, like, that's the lane you have to take. And then also with the false sense of community, like when you're a young person and you decide, okay, I'm gonna do this church thing, like don't put so much pressure on the young people, because you know, like, you're lacking in young membership. They don't need that pressure on top of them to like succeed or follow all these standards. Just like let them be. Just enjoy the fact that they want to come. Don't put too much on them. Don't be like, well, we want you to do the prayer this Sunday. We want you to go to this class. We want you to be a young leader. We need young leaders in our church. Like sometimes that's just too much. And then people just burn out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a good segue and a point number 10. I think what churches aren't doing right here, they're not keeping up with the times and the trends. Churches aren't doing enough to appeal to younger people. You know, Joy, you hit on it earlier, you know, the times of the services, what the services are about. Is it more about mentoring, or is it more about preaching the word? Is it more about works in the community, or is it more about, singing and rejoicing? I think, what younger people are looking for, they're looking for action. They want to see action, and they want to see tangible change, and they want to know they're a part of that. And churches have that's a very low hanging fruit that they can pluck from the tree of life and really put that in the hands of millennials to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, it's just too, like, dear church, like, y'all got too many videos that are viral, not for the right reason. Like, y'all got too many viral videos of some random preacher trying to rap, or some random preacher trying to break dance. Like, dude, you not cool. Like, stop trying to be cool. Just do, like, ask the young people, what do they want? And then just do that. Don't try to be cool when you just not. And like all those viral videos of you kind of being dorky, that embarrasses people. And then they're just like, well, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, you not keeping up with the times and the trends. Like, people do want Instagrammable moments, but I feel like I don't know if I'm gonna get those really at church. What I'm gonna do, record the sermon and put that on my Instagram? Like, let's try some new things. Like, it would help, just a pointer, it would help me a lot if I went on your website and I knew what the service was, so I can decide if I want to go. Because people can stay at home and have church at home nowadays. They ain't got to go to the building. So what are you going to do to get me to the building? It's the same as with the malls. Malls nowadays, people don't go to the mall, like, because they can buy it online. It's the same kind of with church. If you want somebody to come to your church, like, what are you going to do to get them in there? Because stores are closing, and so are churches.
Exactly. And you're going to be left with just mega churches. I think the other thing, what we discovered, Joy, especially when we moved to Buffalo and we're looking for a church home, young people are looking for the church to provide a stance or guidance on issues that affect them. What's your stance on gay marriage? What's your stance on abortion? Like, people are looking for churches to have a stance, whether you hate it or love it, but people are looking for for answers to those hard topics, because these are the things that people are facing. People want to know what, looking for guidance and mentorship. After you graduate college, what do you do? The reality is you can graduate with honors and you're probably going to have a shit job, not in your field. I know that was my case. Like, people don't know or have a place to go to help them navigate through life's tough decisions. And I think this is something that churches could fill that void. Like, how do you now deal with trans people? I think people are learning now that, hey, if somebody comes out as trans, the world's not going to stop spinning. Like, it hasn't. You're seeing it more and more. You see Laverne Cox being one of the hottest people in Hollywood. So I think people want to understand how do I reconcile what's going on in the world versus what I've been taught my whole life? But I'm actually like, the world is still spinning. Like, how do I accept this?
Yeah, it's just like, dear church, like, stop dealing in absolutes. Like, you're not a Sith Lord. Like, stop dealing in absolutes. Like, it ain't working out no more. Like, you can't do that no more because of the internet. Like, people with the internet now, you can't deal in absolutes because everybody sees, like, wait, there is no absolute. Like, if you want to say like there should be no trans people, that's just too absolute. It just doesn't make sense because there are trans people. So you can't do that anymore. Like, you got to change your stance.
Yeah, love God, love others.
You got to balance it. Like, dude, I don't know nothing else.
Yeah, so I feel like so I think what we've unpacked here, we've unpacked 10 reasons. We written down 22, but we tried to pack it down to 10 and hope that everybody is walking away, understanding that there's clear opportunities. I mean, overarching, churches get more involved in the community, make it more about works, find ways to become mentors to younger people looking for guidance as they navigate the adult world and they're figuring out who they are and experiencing new things. And then 2, just be transparent, like understand, your pastor might not be perfect. The head of your choir might not be perfect. Finances need to get figured out. But I think there's a way to be, just more transparent with the younger generation to get there. And then I think what Joyce said is find ways to get people there. Malls are struggling, so they have to find new ways to connect with consumers or things to do with their physical spaces. You guys have that opportunity with the large buildings and the number of physical infrastructures that are in place. Like, find ways to engage the community and help, others who could use your services and the resources.
Yeah, so all I'll say, and last thing is just like the scripture, it says faith without works is dead. So that's all it is to it.
No truer words can be spoken. So Joy, we like to end every show with, something I wish I would have known. So what's something that you wish you would have known now that you're 36-year-old about to be a mother of 2? What's something that you wish you would have known?
Every episode you got to say my damn age.
You're now probably closer to 37 than 36 if you start to look at the calendar.
Just at that point then. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna stick on the church topic, but I feel like something that I wish I would have known was just to live more life. Like, enjoy your life. Don't let someone or an institution like stop you from trying to do your dream or make you feel guilty. Or I always think about the scripture because I feel like Jesus came to give us life more abundantly. And it's like, I don't know if everybody that's living that lifestyle is really living life. And I know that I was not. So it's just like, you just become judgmental. You become angry. You ain't got no friends because you can't really relate with nobody in your age group because everybody is at the club kicking it, going to the movies, listening to Trap Queen by Fetty Wap, and you sit listening to Martha Manuzzi. Like, you ain't finna be able to go up to somebody like, you see that new Martha Manuzzi track? Ooh, like your 18-year-old friends ain't on that. So it's like, and so you find yourself kind of miserable because you only got like 40-year-old friends or people you hanging out with. So I just think the main thing is, if you're young and you want to follow God, that's cool. Just follow God for yourself. Like, the church is it's not a building. The church is within you. That is a lesson I learned. Like, you are the church. Like, we are the church as we go out into the world. Like, you got to be like the salt and light in the world. So it's not a building, it's you. So don't let nobody make you feel bad because you ain't in the building. That's it.
That's deep. Something that I wish I would have known is that our parents grow up and get old. I think most of you don't know. My dad has terminal cancer. We found out he had multiple myeloma in 2015, and normal life expectancy is 5 to 10 years with that. And over the last few months, he's probably been in the hospital more than he's been out. So I think what I'm learning is, they always say, what has 4 legs and 2 legs and 3, and it's man, right? You have 4 legs when you're crawling as a baby, 2 when you can stand up as a man, and 3 when you have 2 legs and a cane. I think your parents grow up and get older, and it's something that we're not all ready for. It's working and handling my dad is probably harder than our 3-year-old right now, to be honest. And I think it's something that we as this generation just, as you get older, you just have to be ready for and try to embrace. There's things that your parents could have done better, and you just have to kind of work through that as they're going through their hard times. So just know your parents do get older. They do need you. And no matter how you feel, like, do the right thing and help them out as best you can.
Yeah.
So, guys, everybody, that's the show. Episode number 5. Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody podcast.
Thank you.